It's now time for Energy Insights, where you get an inside view and local perspectives of all the oil and gas progress going on in the Mid-Ohio Valley. This program is being brought to you by the Southeastern Ohio Oil and Gas Association and can be heard every Saturday at 9 a.m. on local radio WMOA AM 1490 and ESPN radio WJAW FM 100.9 and AM 630. It's now time for the show. Here's Johnny Wharf, your local host.
Johnny Wharf on Energy Insights, and proud to be with Carl Heinrich, and a chance for some of us guys to look back at the good old days of a good old industry. You had mentioned Mount Gilead Field, and that's not familiar to me, and probably not to the listeners, but maybe some of them. So talk a little bit about that.
Okay, well, the Mount Gilead Field was in Morrow County, Ohio, which is 2 counties north of Columbus. And it was discovered in the early 1960s by some local independent drillers in the Morrow County area. And it was quite a boom. It was the last of the old-time town lot drilling booms. And what I mean by town lot drilling boom is people were getting wells drilled in their backyard, and just a cluster of wells drilled all over the place. There were some areas that were very closely drilled, and a lot of the county, the wells were drilled in various parts of Morrow County. It was quite a sight to see. When I graduated from Marietta College with a degree in petroleum engineering and geology department.
What was the year?
1964.
Okay.
That was the first job I had. I turned down several jobs with the major companies out west because this looked like it was going to be the last of the old-time drilling booms. It was an interesting period. The company I worked for was called Well Supervision Incorporated, which was owned by Bill Haas from Marietta, W.H. Haas. He was quite active in the area, leasing and developing leases. He didn't have too much of his own production.
Did you actually then travel to Mount Gilead, or did you live there when you worked that field?
I lived in Mount Gilead because so many different oil companies came in. There just wasn't any available housing. There was one small country hotel in the town of Mount Gilead. So Bill Haas got together with several of his friends, and they started the Petroleum Club. I had a room in the Petroleum Club by virtue of being an employee of Bill Haas. And so that's where I stayed, and eventually I moved to a rental apartment in the downtown area.
Carl, think about one thing, and let's go back to 1964, but something from those early days of the business that still is around today, that's something of the industry that you learned, or maybe that's still around in the industry.
Well, there's not too many of us old dinosaurs that are still left. They're gradually dying off. A lot of the drilling was with cable tool drills. It was really kind of an exciting period. They were drilling wells all over the place. This is before Ohio had any spacing requirements. The way the spacing requirements came out in Ohio was that, I think it was Ohio, don't hold me to that, but I think it was Ohio, decided they would be interested in drilling in Morrow County. They looked at the situation. They were from Texas, where everything was very well regulated by the Texas Railroad Commission. And they said, well, you don't have any spacing in Ohio. If you could get some spacing laws originated, then we'd be interested in drilling in Ohio. And so Ohio put together a series of spacing laws depending on the depth of the well. Feature of that spacing law was you had to have at least 10 acres for each well, and that kind of put an end to the town lot drilling situation. I remember one well, they unitized 3 people's backyards to get enough land for a location, and there was a drilling rig in the backyard, and the mud pits were on the neighbor's property. The access to the well was through the landowner's driveway. In order to get through the narrow space between the houses, they had to take several of the rig parts off. The cat heads on the drilling rig stuck out too far.
I would add that as we close out today's show, Carl Heinrich is our guest. When I refer to myself as an old dinosaur someday, I hope I remember as much as this old dinosaur does about the oil and gas industry. We're speaking of the Mount Gilead field back in 1964, Carl Heinrich's first job out of Marietta College. This is Energy Insights for the Mid-Ohio Valley and beyond.
Thank you for listening to Energy Insights, brought to you by the Southeastern Ohio Oil and Gas Association. Tune in every Saturday at 9 a.m. on WMOA and ESPN Radio WJAW as Johnny Wolf brings you your local and inside perspectives of the oil and gas progress going on in the Mid-Ohio Valley.